Hi guys, welcome to week 3. Today we are going over chapter 3. It's really important that you guys read these chapters and get a full understanding for the concepts. I'm going to go over it generally here today. So it is important to watch the video, but equally as important to actually read the chapter in the book. Okay, so once again, we are in fashion forecasting. I use the 5th edition, which is the most current. You can use the 4th edition, and it'll slightly vary, but you can definitely use it. Okay, we're still in part 1, forecasting frameworks. Chapter 3 is all about fashion forecasting theories. Okay, so at the end of this lecture and reading the book, you need to do both. You should be able to identify the directional theories of fashion change, their source, basic tenets, and predictive power. You should also be able to analyze current fashion within theoretical framework and apply those theoretical models as tools of analysis and communication. The importance of theory. So fashion theory essentially describes, explains, and predicts how people relate to their clothing and also how they use clothing to manage their appearance and perception, right? So why do we adopt clothes? Why is it important? What does it make us feel? And how does it show off to others? Forecasters use theories to explain how a trend begins, okay, and what its path is going to be within a social system. Is it going to only hit the elite? Is it going to hit the lower class? Where is it going to go? What's the adventure going to be like? Theories also show us recognized patterns that have explained past fashions and their paths and can be used to arrange and order current observations. Directional theories of fashion change. So the directional theory of fashion change can help forecasters determine important factors such as where the innovation began, okay, who innovated it? Was it the designer? Did it come from the street? Who leads? Who follows? Okay, that changes on each different class, and how quickly a fashion moves through society. Is it slow? Does it take time to cultivate and to adopt? Or does it hit a society by storm and everyone accepts it? And lastly, when a style reaches the end of its popularity, how do we figure that out? There are 3 theories that explain this. First is trickle-down theory, second is trickle-across theory, and lastly is the trickle-up theory. First, trickle-down theory, okay? The views of Veblen and George Simmel form the basis for the trickle-down theory. This describes how social classes use fashion as class distinction, okay? How to separate themselves from other classes and as a badge of group uniformity. So this is a really great image. It shows us that the elite starts here at the top of the pyramid, and the trickle-down theory essentially states that the elite class accepts it first, and then it slowly trickles down to all the different classes. So downward from the elite class to each next adjacent class. Okay, the tempo and speed depends on the ability of lower class to see it and copy, right? Do we have the communication where the lower class can actually see what the elite is doing? Are we seeing it in the media? Are we seeing it on social media? And once we see it and want to adopt it, do we have the ability to copy it, right? Do we have a place to purchase the garments, to purchase the trends, to see the trends, to find it for the price point that makes sense for our class? The dynamics of this trickle-down theory explain how status markers create differentiation between the class systems and also how it forms imitation. Essentially, if one class is accepting it and then another adjacent class accepts it after that, after seeing it in the elite class, we are imitating that class. The source of fashion ideas essentially state that the designers, okay, the designers at the top who propose the innovation, propose it to the elite, and those are the gatekeepers of the trend. So once the designers are proposing this X trend, the gatekeepers of the elite are saying, yes, we like it, we're going to participate, or no, we're moving on to the next. The source of change are the imitators. So once the next adjacent class accepts, typically the elite has moved on to the next item. Okay. There are certain ways that this class can display its wealth. The first is conspicuous consumption, that is displaying your wealth through an extravagant lifestyle. Okay, so we see that everywhere. We see people, literally visually and physically displaying how their lifestyle is, right? Whether they're going to work, whether they're not, whether they carry on shopping bags or a certain designer bag, all of that generalized is showing off their lifestyle. Conspicuous leisure is specifically not having to work for a living and participating in the extravagant lifestyle of travel, entertainment, pursuit of pleasure. So this happens a lot with celebrity children or influencers on social media, right? Going to Tahiti one day, going to New York to shop the next day. They're not working, but they're participating in the extravagant lifestyle. Conspicuous waste is deliberately buying trendy clothing that will go out of style quickly and then discarding it due to fashion change, even though it's still functionally usable. This happens all the time. I think it's slowly changing, but how many of us go have a birthday celebration or want to go to Vegas and buy specific garments for those events? We use them once or twice, and then we get rid of them because we no longer have use for them, even though we can still use them because they're intact and they're still functional. That essentially shows off some sort of wealth, because people that don't have the money to partake in that conspicuous waste would never get rid of something that's functional. Okay. Last on this slide is vicarious consumption. So displaying wealth through the dress of a romantic partner or offspring. So essentially you can display your wealth by dressing your partner a certain way, dressing your children a certain way, so the family or the partnership looks a certain way and displays that wealth. In the language of clothes from 1983, there's additional categories that are part of conspicuous consumption now. First is a conspicuous addition, so wearing layers of clothing other than other people. So wearing multiple layers, showing that you have the money to purchase multiple items. Conspicuous division, so wearing outfits consecutively, wearing more outfits consecutively. With the more outfits one displays, the higher one's status. So, wearing your gym outfit in the morning, changing out for lunch, and then changing out for having a dinner gala, right? Having the option of having multiple outfits to display essentially shows off your status. Conspicuous multiplication, okay? Owning many similar garments so that you never have to wear the exact same outfit twice, right? Having 50 pairs of denim, 30 jackets, 17 luxury bags, 20 pairs of boots, right? Constantly making new combinations so that no one sees you wearing that exact same outfit 2 times. Conspicuous materials, only purchasing expensive textiles, right? So never partaking in polyester or things of lower grade. Conspicuous wealth, high price gems and metals, so purchasing jewels, right? Gold, platinum. Conspicuous labeling, I feel like this is very popular in LA, wearing prominent designer brand names and logos, right? So not necessarily purchasing the garment because you like the fit or the proportion or the style, you're purchasing the garment or the accessory because it has a logo that's well displayed and shows off your wealth, yeah? The last one is Quentin Bell wrote Veblen that he should add the category of conspicuous outrage. And this is really interesting. This is deliberately wearing clothes that are not considered to be in good taste, right? So the quickest example that comes to mind are those new Balenciaga tennis shoe heels, right? How many people are going to accept that trend for the price point, right? Are they functional? Are they comfortable? Do they go along with your aesthetic? They're going to be very difficult to adopt, especially at that high price point. But there are going to be a group of people that do, in order to show that they can spend $1,000 on something that maybe they wear once or twice. That is not in necessarily good taste because most people don't approve of it. So there are a couple of sources of instabilities that exist in society, okay, that are part of this trickle-down theory. It's gender, ethnicity, age, and attractiveness. Okay, second theory is the trickle-across theory. Okay, so unlike the trickle-down theory that comes from the top and goes slowly down, the trickle-across theory is fast and furious. And it is also called or mentioned as the mass market or simultaneous adoption theory. This theory holds that fashion information trickles across horizontally within a social class rather than vertically. Two kinds of consumers are influential in popularizing new looks: innovators and influentials within each class system. So when we look at this, it's much different than the previous theory. In the trickle across theory of fashion change, designers propose fashion and gatekeepers. They determine which looks are reproduced in quantity and at all price points. So within each category, each class category, there are gatekeepers of fashion. So there are people that are innovators within each category. Those people are the ones that are determining whether the looks are approved, whether they're adopting them, and how they're reproduced, what quantity they're reproduced in, and what price points are needed for their class. Okay, so it's a horizontal across strata. It's hitting all of these class systems at the same time. For that reason, the tempo and speed is rapid and simultaneous. Multiple classes are accepting the trend or the fashion at the same time. Typically, we exclude the elite class out of this theory. The dynamics are that fashion ideas, are introduced, the mass media exposes them, and then all the market levels approve them. Okay. Source of fashion ideas is couture with selection by professional gatekeepers. So the idea comes from couture, but it's specifically modified for each gatekeeper of each class system. The source of change are innovators and influentials in each market strata. So each influential or innovator or gatekeeper in each class system are going to essentially decide whether they're adopting it. Okay. Three factors are essential for emergence of mass market. Number one is mass communication. If there's not communication about the new innovation in the form of newspapers, magazines, television, movies, music, social media, and the information is not available to all the class systems simultaneously, it's not going to be successful. So there has to be mass communication about the trend to all the class systems. There also has to be mass production, okay? All of the looks that are being adopted have to be available in any given season. They have to offer a possibility of individual selection, so differentiate, certain trend markers that are changing through the garment. So if we're talking about a low-rise mini skirt, maybe there's one that's a little bit longer, one that has a frayed edge, one that comes in a plaid, ones that comes in cheaper textile. Okay, so different possibilities, and also for a different price point. So each class system is going to have different price points that they need to have in order to access the trend. And then the biggest adopters of this trickle across theory is the growing middle class. Last is the trickle up theory. This was proposed by George Field in 1970, and it's called the status float phenomenon or the trickle up theory. According to this theory, higher status segments with more power imitate the lower status. Okay, so we see things from the lower class, it trickles up, and then the elite are the last adopters of the trend. Okay, so here in the trickle up theory of fashion change, status markers float up the status pyramid rather than trickling down. Okay, so the status markers trickle up from the consumer stylists. So the bottom are the consumer stylists and subcultural groups. So underground ravers, rappers, certain people that are in sports or different subcultures, right? Have their own style, their own aesthetic, the things that they participate in, and they have their own dynamic within fashion that is seen from the different class levels, and it slowly is adopted upwards. Okay, the tempo and speed depends on the sensitivity of the gatekeepers in each class system to the trend or to the fashion, and the visibility of the subculture groups. So if I never see what underground ravers in downtown LA are wearing, right? And I am in this class group, then it's going to be really hard for me to adopt those trends because I don't have any visibility, right? So the more that we see it, which is a lot easier now with social media, the faster the tempo and the speed will be. So the consumer stylists, people here, are essentially influencing the professional gatekeepers, the designers, and the fashion leaders of each group here, each class system. The source of the fashion ideas come from the aesthetic codes of the subculture group. So it's not coming from the designers, it's coming from the subculture group, cultural groups that have their own aesthetics within their own groups. The source of change are instabilities in age, gender, ethnicity, and appearance. So if someone that is wearing something here and they're young and fresh, and someone in this level here is older and can't accept that because of the age difference, then it's going to have a problem in the change. The trickle up theory has specific examples that come from different cultures. So African American culture, youth culture, mixing of classes, right? So an elite mixing with the lower class, gender fluidity in fashion, and then style leadership by explicit or sexualized groups of people. Okay, the trickle up theory provides a cornerstone of today's view that street fashion is a laboratory for fashion change. This is a theory that I truly have studied a lot because I find it so interesting. I believe that most fashion change comes from the bottom level. What we see in the street, we imitate. It's super accessible. It's visible. With social media, we're constantly seeing street style and street fashion, and we can, with one click, see what a subculture is doing in Japan, right? And we can choose to imitate that or not. Okay. Theory of shifting erogenous zone. I won't go over this in the lecture. You guys can read this, but essentially in the 60s and 70s, we as a society started dressing a little bit more provocatively, and we started uncovering parts of the body. And every, couple of years, those erogenous zones are shifting. So, 1 year it will be, showing off your legs, and the next year it will be showing off your chest. So that is a change that molds the adoption process. And lastly, the pendulum of fashion. Okay, so it swings from a point of exaggeration, and then it moves in the opposite direction. So a trend essentially terminates when every possibility has been exhausted. So we've hit the lower class. We've tried to simultaneously hit all the classes at once. We've participated in mass communication about the trend. We've given it to the elite to have it trickle down. Once it's hit every possibility and it's been exhausted, it kind of at that point terminates and dissipates. All right, that's the end of chapter 3. Please read the chapter. It's very important for you guys to understand the concepts, be able to put them into context, and know the terms out of the chapter. All right, thank you guys.